Yo YouTube, what's going on? It's Hi MMA, and today we're back to discuss super fights I would make in every UFC division. Now, of course, we all love to see the top contenders taking each other on, and sometimes those fights within themselves are super fights. But today, I'm just going to be discussing some interesting fights that I think all of us as UFC fans would love to see. I'm going to mention like a main one for each division, but there might be some honorable mentions because I know in Bantamweight I got a couple, and I'm sure there'll be more as the video goes on. So stay tuned and strap in because we're talking about Flyweight first. Now, the super fight I would set up in Flyweight involves the current champion because there isn't actually that many interesting fighters at Flyweight at the moment. And the matchup I would make is Demetrious Johnson versus Pantoja. Tell me that wouldn't be a fucking sick fight. I know Pantoja would try make it boring, but if you watch Demetrious Johnson's one championship fights, you know this motherfucker's coming out there scrapping. I think he would fucking melt Pantoja, honestly. I'm not one of these stupid motherfuckers just jumping on his hype train since he's been out of the UFC. Nah, I've been a fan of DJ for a long time. He is the flyweight greatest of all time, and he could come back to the UFC and prove that now. I feel like he'd win that flyweight belt with ease in the UFC even today. He hasn't had that many losses in his career. He's always shown that he's one of the most skilled fighters, and like if you watch him in one championship, he avenged his loss against that Brazilian guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think this would be the most interesting super fight you could make at Flyweight. Nothing really more to be said about it. Demetrious Johnson wins with ease, but it would be very interesting. Fans would get very interested because it would be the return of DJ to the UFC, and he has a lot more fans now than he did when he got traded for Ben Askren. So yeah, I think that'd be a sick fight. But let's move on to the bantamweight division. Now, there is some honorable mentions to be made in the bantamweight division, and they both involve someone who made a comeback recently, looking amazing for how far he has come along in his career. It's Jose Aldo. Now, I think the two fights you could make with him that would garner lots and lots of attention would be him versus either Dominic Cruz or Henry Cejudo. Now, I could see Jose Aldo beating Dominic Cruz, honestly, via finish. Dominic Cruz got fucked up in his last fight in 2022 by Marlon Vera. If you've seen it, you've seen it. And if you haven't, you'd know, trust me. And Henry Cejudo just got embarrassed by Merab, and he doesn't look that good anymore. And Jose Aldo's looking really good. So I think they're both very winnable fights for him. And there's another honorable mention I want to make in the bantamweight division. It would be to see TJ Dillashaw take on Cody Garbrandt for the third time. You know, TJ Dillashaw's been out for a while now with his injury. He was cut from the roster, but there's been rumors of a comeback, and recently Cody Garbrandt lost to Figueiredo on UFC 300. Now, he did work up a 2-fight win streak before that, but they were just against cans, and you can't really keep having Cody Garbrandt, someone with such a big name, fighting these unknown fighters. Let's see an actually interesting fight. Let's see those two take each other on. I think Cody Garbrandt could possibly win the trilogy, but you never know because TJ never really lost it. He did beat Corey Sandhagen after all. I think that was in 2021. So let's see those fights. That would be fucking sick. But that isn't even the super fight that I have chosen for the bantamweight division. The super fight I would want to see is Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Jose Aldo. Now, listen, the hardcore fans would really get behind this fight being made. It'd be a sick striking matchup. I think O'Malley would definitely win, but I think Jose Aldo would put up more of a fight than, say, a Marlon Vera did. I think he's still got that dog in him, and I don't think he would be a pushover. Now, Jose Aldo would be an amazing name for O'Malley's resume in years to come. I mean, look, featherweight GOAT, you know, has some credible wins at bantamweight, even like this far on into his career. Even making a comeback now at bantamweight, like lower than, like usually fighters go up in a weight class when they're getting on in the career. But nah, Jose Aldo came down and showed what he's made of. And I think he'd show what he's made of against Sean O'Malley. He would not get that win, but he would teach everyone a lesson. But I do think it would be his final fight. He might have to fight one more time before he gets that shot, if he does. But I would love to see it. The UFC should make it. It would be a great pay-per-view. You know, he could put that on the main event of any pay-per-view. It would be amazing. I'd love to see that. But let's move on to the featherweight division. Okay, now the honorable mention I would like to make for featherweight would be Alexander Volkanovski versus Aljamain Sterling. You've got Sterling coming up from Bantamweight, just had a fight against Calvin Kattar on UFC 300, a fight I was not impressed with, to be honest, and I wouldn't even consider this a super fight because I consider Aljamain Sterling just a boring fighter. That being said though, you cannot ignore the magnitude it would have on the featherweight division. You've got the number 2 greatest bantamweight of all time. That is not my opinion, by the way, but you know, the widely agreed upon opinion that Aljamain Sterling is the number 2 bantamweight of all time against the number 2 featherweight of all time in Alexander Volkanovski, and Alex Volkanovski would destroy Aljamain Sterling in this fight. It would be an absolute bloodbath. Alex would pick him apart on the feet, and if Aljamain tried to bring it to the ground, honestly, I don't think he'd do much to Volkanovski. He would not tap him out. And yeah, I just think that would be a great fight for the featherweight division. But the actual super fight I want to see, it could potentially already be in the works. It's Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. Now, this fight should get made next. I would love to see it. I think, I discussed it in yesterday's video, I think Ilia Topuria could potentially win via decision. I think his ground game would be a bit too much for Max if he wanted to bring it to the ground. And honestly, I think his boxing could overwhelm Max in some areas of the fight. But Max does have the height. He has the reach, I'm pretty sure. He could just put on a striking masterclass, similar of which he put onto Justin Gaethje. But, you know, it's going to be an amazing fight once it's made. There'll be some interesting trash talk in the build-up. Main event of a pay-per-view. You can put it wherever you want. Let's see this fight before the end of this year. Now, let's move on to the lightweight division. Now, the fight I have chosen for lightweight might shock you because it involves someone from the last division. It's Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. Now, I could see this maybe happening if they don't give the title shot next in the featherweight division to Max. They give it to Alexander Volkanovski instead. If they do that, I think Max should stay at lightweight and he should take on Charles Oliveira. Here's why. It would give him the opportunity to move up in the rankings. It would be a big pay-per-view. And I just think, like, it would be a great stylistic matchup. You've got Oliveira, who has some, you know, that kind of weird Muay Thai stance on the feet, good stand-up, obviously not as good as Max Holloway's, but Charles Oliveira's ground game is miles ahead of Max Holloway's, so it'd be interesting to see how it would go. I think that fight could go either way, honestly. I think most likely Max Holloway would win by a finish. I don't think Oliveira's chin would be able to hold up against Max Holloway and some of the fucking power he has. He has the power to knock out Justin Gaethje. I get it was at the end of the fight, but still, I think that would be a great fight for the lightweight division in time to come. Hopefully, we could maybe see that before the end of this year if they announce Topuria versus Volkanovski. But I think Oliveira might be taking on Dan Hooker, which is just fucking stupid. But it'll still be a fun fight. But that, I think the Max Holloway fight with Charles Oliveira would be better. Now let's move on to the welterweight division. Now, you know I had to do it. My choice for welterweight is Leon Edwards versus Conor, the notorious McGregor. Tell me that wouldn't be a sick fight. Absolute war on the feet, I guarantee it would be. Either of them could get the finish. I think most likely what would happen is the fight would reach maybe the 3rd round, 4th round. Conor McGregor would get tired and Leon Edwards would finish him. But that does not rule out the opportunity for Conor McGregor to finish him early, as he has done to various other people he's been counted out against in the past. Look at the Jose Aldo fight. I get that shit's ages ago now, but it's just an example of what could happen. I would pick Leon Edwards to win, but I would want Conor McGregor to win, my favorite fighter of all time, and I think he would, he'd show that he's still got it, because people really do count him out these days. You know, he was Khabib's hardest fight by far in his career. You know, he wasn't even looking bad against Poirier at the start of that 3rd fight before the leg break. And yeah, I just think this would be a sick fight for welterweight. I think it would be great for the UFC to have Conor McGregor fighting again. I'm not sure when they do this. If they do this, you know, the likelihood is very, very low. But if it did happen, I would be fucking hyped. And I would be supporting Conor all the way. I think we'd all love to see a Conor McGregor title fight again before he retires. And I think this would be the most likely one. I don't see him fighting for the title at lightweight anymore. Even though, obviously, people would love to see Islam and Conor face off because it'd almost be like, you know, mini Khabib versus McGregor. But Leon Edwards versus Conor McGregor is my pick for welterweight. Let's move on to middleweight.
Okay, see, here's the fucking thing, you guys.
My choice for middleweight is Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. The rematch. A fight that I think will happen after Israel Adesanya beats the fuck out of Dricus and gets his belt back. And I honestly, like I said in yesterday's video, man, I honestly do see Israel Adesanya beating Strickland in the rematch. I think he can read Strickland's style, and I think he'll finish Strickland if they fight again. I don't think that fight will go 5 rounds. If you hear how hungry Adesanya sounds at his recent press conference, I don't take his words like a joke. I believe him, man. I think he's coming back to take some heads, and I think Dricus and Sean Strickland are next on the hit list. There's not much more I could say about this fight. I think Israel Adesanya would win. The trash talk would be legendary. I think Sean Strickland would own him again in the lead-up, but I think inevitably it would be Israel Adesanya owning Sean Strickland in the octagon. Would be an amazing fight. Great fight for middleweight.